was reading Lady Knights. Wait, please, wait, it's important to the story. I decided to finally give it a read, and I think it's a good series about female empowerment that doesn't revolve around the main character being perfect, but something came up near the end of the first season. You see, the knights in this series are gifted children, given random powers. Our main character discovers her powers during a duel, that being to copy her opponent's powers, and that got me to say out loud, what is with main characters in Webtoon series and copying abilities? I've been reading a lot of Webtoon series, mainly series that revolve around abilities, that people have their own powers, series such as Lady Knight, Mythic Item Obtained, Omniscient Reader, Hardcore Living Warrior, X and Ash, Hero Killer, The Lazy Lord Masters the Sword, I Get Stronger the More I Eat, I'm the Max Level Newbie, and of course, UnOrdianry. Wow, that was a lot of series actually. These series have some variety of skills, powers, unique personal attacks, whatever the thing is called. Sometimes they're more like video gamey skills, like Hardcore Leveling Warrior, X and Ash, or Mythic Item Obtained, where some skill are activated with some like menus and their stats and whatever. There are some more in the middle, like Omniscient Reader and I Get Stronger the More I Eat. A mouthful that title is, where they have skills that are called certain things, but it's not really like a menu they can usually pull up. And series like Lady Knight, The Lazy Lord Masters the Sword, and UnOrdianry, where people have these unique personal abilities that aren't like a menu or like a video game mechanic, but it's just like a fact of life, just part of what people can do. Now, 2 questions. Why these series, and why is any of this important? To answer your first question, yeah, there are a bunch of series with characters that have some type of skill or abilities that they use throughout the series. A bunch of them that I definitely didn't mention, like Villain to Kill. Am I against Villain to Kill? Do I hate it? No. It's a great story. I did a video on it when season 1 ended. You should go check that out. Instead, I chose these series for a specific reason. That reason being the reason I mentioned at the top of this video. The idea of copying. All of the series that are listed aren't just series that have to do with skills and powers, but instead with series that have to do with skills and powers, and having a character that can copy or mirror other people's abilities. So I just gotta ask, why? What is so appealing or interesting about people having Control-C as a power? Well, first things first, let's talk about powers themselves. Powers, skills, abilities, curses, gifts, whatever you want to call them, I'm just gonna call them powers. Now, powers are inherently cool. Powers are just an extension of what humans can do. Actions that humans can't ever achieve on their own, ever. From lightning and time manipulation in UnOrdianry, to opening up video game-like menus in Hardcore Living Warrior or X and Ash, powers are cool, because even the worst power is still way cooler than whatever the heck I can do, which is nothing but make these videos. Anyways, powers are inherently cool, and there are some absolute bangers in Webtoon series. My personal favorite is Hardcore Leveling Warrior's Sad Smile, someone who can make magical contracts with other people, basically making other people deal with the devil, which is so cool. And also very lawyer of me to want to be able to just make magical contracts. Seraphina is literally time manipulation as a power. Edgy Boy and Lady Knight is basically just Thor. Omniscient Reader has a bunch of cool abilities, so much so that I can't really pin one down. Whatever, there are a ton of abilities that I think are sick and would fit perfectly in a platform fighter. Wonder where I heard that idea before. Anyways, powers and abilities are cool. That raises a good question. When making a fantasy/action webtoon series with a lot of fight scenes, how do you A, make them interesting to read, and B, make the main character more interesting than the people they're fighting? Now, the first question is answered by this entire opening section. You give them unique powers. By doing so, you make every fight scene a little bit different, and therefore a little more unique. If people have special powers and such, every fight becomes a little more special, because every fight has a new and interesting power thrown into the mix. Take UnOrdianry, the darling child on this channel, a webtoon that can do no wrong. Maybe, I don't know. And take specifically Blake. I won't change how I pronounce his name. It's gonna stay Blake because I think Blake is stupid. Blake's power is energy discharge, which mainly takes the form of laser beams, especially in the early part of the series. But as time progresses, Blake learns new ways to use his ability, adding in the fact that every time he's in a fight, new abilities are shown off every time he faces someone new. This means that every time Blake is in a fight, it's gonna be interesting and new, because he's learning new things and facing new opponents. Also, unique skills make the fights a little more personal. We don't just see two people fight, but we see two abilities fighting off. That red beam or blast can only be tied back to Blake. But while unique and personal powers solve the first question, they actually make the second question a lot more tricky. Now, every fight is interesting. Every fight is a little more different, a little more personal. But question B was, how do you make the main character the most interesting person in the fight? If we follow one person throughout the entire series, we follow one ability. And while you can do a progression type thing, like with Blake or Cassian's Villain to Kill, having their powers evolve as the series go on, one problem you can never avoid is that other people's powers will always be cooler. Not just because they are cooler or just better, but because they're new, they're fresh, they're exciting. So how do you make the main character more interesting than their opponents? Well, one way is pretty clear, based on this video, what I lovingly call the Control-C power. To get around the fact that new abilities are usually more interesting, why not let our main character use a new ability every time they're in combat? But you can't just give them a new ability every time, so instead you let them Control-C powers. That way, every time there's a new ability, the focus isn't just on the new ability or the character with the new ability, instead it's on how the main character can use or get that ability. While each character's Control-C power shares the same concept, I think how they're executed makes them each personal, not to mention reflects the series itself. By the way, major spoilers for every series I've just mentioned above. I know I already kinda did, but you know, still spoilers. I'm gonna skip over Lady Knight and Mythic Item Obtained, mainly because their copying mechanic is still so new and yet to be explained. So let's start with UnOrdianry. John Doe's ability is aura manipulation, the ability to manipulate his aura to mirror and amplify other people's abilities, using them for his own sake. This makes John a force to be reckoned with, mainly because fighting him is just fighting a stronger version of yourself. But this ability isn't as simple as a Control-C, instead it was a process of learning how to control his aura veins and his aura channels and to be able to mirror other people's abilities, learning how to use other people's powers, and even to use stronger versions of their powers. It was a process that he had to overtake. Hardcore Leveling Warriors Ethan doesn't just have the power to Control-C their powers, instead he has to gamble with others, being able to use his personal attribute to steal character-bonded items and skills that normally can't be acquired in a normal method. Instead, he just has to gamble with someone else to steal their powers. X and Ash has the main character X just have the power to straight up steal other people's powers. Omniscient Reader's Doksha Kim can borrow other people's powers due to his knowledge of the book that the world got reverse isekai'd into. The Lazy Lord Masters the Sword doesn't have a typical power system, but certain swordsmen have unique attacks, like giant gusts of wind or energy defense things. I don't know what this guy does. But our main character, Iron, puts in non-stop effort, training for 5 years straight, and because of that is able to replicate his friend's abilities. The Max Level Newbie's main character has these weird quests to get other people's skills. Hero Killer's main character is able to steal people's gifts by killing them while they're using their gifts. And I Get Stronger the More I Eat follows a similar idea, needing to eat animals to shapeshift into said animals and gain their skills. And in a fantasy world, animals and creatures have unique special skills. The point I'm getting at is the Control-C power is a way to make fights with powers more interesting, but it's also a way to keep the attention on the main character. But what's even more interesting is what I've said before, that these Control-C powers always reflect what the series is about. UnOrdianry is all about a broken system that values strength over anything else, and John is, surprise surprise, one of the strongest members of the school. Hardcore Leveling Warrior and the X and Ash series are both more scummy ways of getting strength, stealing and gambling, and how often that gray area results in the strongest players. The Lazy Lord Masters the Sword is all about effort. Putting your everything into something will always reward you. Omniscient Reader is about brains over brawn, that knowing your situation is better than being strong enough to overtake it, which Doksha Kim is. And series like the Max Level Newbie, Hero Killer, and I Get Stronger the More I Eat all have more selfish main characters. The Max Level Newbie's main character consistently uses others to get what he wants, And Hero Killer and I Get Stronger the More I Eat are much more darker and serious stories, involving a lot of death and murder, because our main characters are murderers and practically villains. I think the point of the Control-C power is pretty easy to see. Powers, abilities, skills, gifts, curses, whatever you want to call them. Just make fights way more interesting. It adds another layer of complexity, and giving your main character the ability to Control-C other people's powers makes the main character always stand out, and always reflect about what the series is really about. Make sure to check out the long list of series I recommended here today. And like always, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you next week. Take care.